This is not random. You did not find this book by accident. Something inside you is waking, and it pulled this to you. You want the truth, and, inside these chapters, you're going to hear the dark side of third eye awakening, the part no spiritual teacher ever warned you about, the isolation, the distortions, the eerie sense that the world around you is shifting while everyone else stays asleep. What you're about to uncover will shake the way you see spirituality, your mind, and reality itself. Before we go any further, do this. Acknowledge this moment. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Then type, "My journey begins now." Hold that intention. Don't look back. A door is opening, and you're about to cross it. Let's begin. Introduction. There is a secret knocking at the door of your consciousness. It is a sound you have heard in the quiet moments, in the space between heartbeats, in the unsettling silence that follows a profound dream. You have felt it as a curious pull, a deep and inexplicable yearning for something more, something real, something that whispers of a truth far grander than the daily grind you were told was your entire inheritance. You are not imagining this. That knock is the echo of your own potential, a potential so vast and so powerful that most of humanity has been conditioned to fear it. This book is an answer to that knock. But be warned. What lies on the other side of that door is not the gentle, sanitized light you may have been led to believe awaits you. It is a raw, unfiltered, and often terrifying current of pure existence. This is not a path for the curious tourist. This is a journey for the committed seeker, for the one who understands that to grasp the light, one must first be willing to navigate the absolute dark. What if everything you have been told about spiritual awakening, about opening your third eye, about achieving enlightenment, was a carefully curated lie of omission? What if the popular images of serene yogis floating in blissful meditation were only half of the picture, and the other half was something far more intense, far more chaotic, and infinitely more real? The truth is, the awakening of the inner sight, the activation of the Ajna chakra, the unlocking of the pineal gland, call it what you will, is the most profound and disruptive event that can occur in a human life. It is a psychological and spiritual earthquake that does not build a prettier house for your ego to live in. It systematically dismantles the very foundation of the person you believe yourself to be. Most people are not ready for this. Most people would run screaming back to the comfort of their illusions if they knew what truly lay ahead. But you are different. You would not have been drawn to this title, you would not be listening to this voice, if a part of you did not already know that the pretty, packaged spirituality sold in mainstream markets is a pale imitation of the real, untamed force. You are here because you are ready for the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. You are here because you sense that the greatest treasures are always guarded by dragons, and you have decided you are willing to face them. This book is your map through the uncharted territories of your own soul. It is a guide to the dark side of awakening, not to frighten you away, but to prepare you, to fortify you, to ensure that when the storms come, and they will come, you will not be shattered, but sculpted. We will journey together through the 10 most critical and most often hidden landscapes of this transformation. We will explore the shadows that the light casts. We will confront the psychic debris, the emotional purges, the existential dread, and the terrifying loneliness that are the true milestones of this path. This is not a journey of acquiring something new. It is a journey of unbecoming everything you are not, so that what you truly are can finally and fearlessly emerge. So, take a deep breath. The life you have known is about to become a memory. The person you have been is about to become a story. A new story is beginning, and it starts now. Chapter 1. The Siren's Call and the Point of No Return. It begins not with a bang, but with a whisper. A quiet, persistent discontent that the poet Rumi called a secret pull. A man goes about his daily business, he achieves his goals, he accumulates his possessions, and yet he finds himself standing in the middle of his own life, feeling like a stranger in a familiar land. He looks at the faces around him, he listens to the conversations, and he feels a chasm opening up between his experience and theirs. He is playing a role in a play whose plot he no longer understands, whose purpose he can no longer feel. This, dear listener, is the siren's call. It is the first crack in the eggshell of consensus reality. It is the soul's first tentative signal that the life you are living is a fraction of the life you are capable of living. And it is utterly, irrevocably seductive. This call can manifest in 1,000 different ways. For some, it is a sudden, overwhelming experience of synchronicity, a series of coincidences so precise and so meaningful that the concept of random chance becomes laughable. You think of a long-lost friend, and they call you moments later. You have a question burning in your mind, and you open a book randomly to the exact paragraph that holds the answer. The universe begins to feel less like a cold, mechanical void and more like a conscious, responsive intelligence. For others, the call comes as a deep, somatic awakening. A surge of energy up the spine, a pressure in the center of the forehead, a spontaneous flow of tears during a meditation or a walk in nature. The body, long ignored as a mere vehicle, suddenly announces itself as a sacred instrument, tuned to frequencies you never knew existed. And for many, it begins with dreams, vivid, technicolor, epic dreams that feel more real than waking life. Dreams of flying, of being chased, of meeting luminous beings, of receiving cryptic messages. The veil between the worlds begins to thin, and the contents of the unconscious begin to spill through. But here is the crucial turning point that most spiritual texts fail to mention. This initial phase of wonder and magic is the bait. It is the universe's way of luring you away from the safe shores of your old life. It makes the journey ahead seem like a grand adventure, which it is, but it conveniently leaves out the chapters about the storms, the shipwrecks, and the sea monsters. You are being invited to set sail on an ocean of consciousness. And the moment you truly answer that call, the moment you make a conscious, internal commitment to seek the source of that whisper, you pass the point of no return. The shore behind you vanishes into the mist. There is no going back to the person you were. That person, with his certainties and his simple pleasures, is already gone. He is a memory, a ghost. You have stepped onto the path, and the path only moves forward, into the unknown. Let me speak to you directly now. You, who are feeling this pull, you, who have tasted that first, intoxicating sip of something more. I need you to understand the gravity of this moment. You are standing at the threshold. The experiences of light and connection you are having are real, but they are only the entryway. The spiritual marketplace will try to sell you a permanent residence in this antechamber. It will offer you crystals to amplify the good feelings and teachings to help you avoid the bad ones. It will promise you a life of perpetual bliss, love, and light. Do not be fooled. This is spiritual bypassing, and it is a dead end. The real journey demands that you move through the antechamber and into the great hall of your own being, a hall that contains both a throne room and a dungeon. The siren's call is beautiful, but it is a beauty that demands everything. Are you willing to pay the price? Your entire identity, your relationships, your worldview, your very sanity? The call does not ask for your weekend commitment. It asks for your life. And if you are still listening, it is because a part of you, the deepest, most essential part, has already said yes. What follows this yes is a process that the alchemists of old called solve et coagula, to dissolve and to coagulate. The initial awakening begins the great dissolution. The structures of your personality, the beliefs you inherited, the traumas you buried, the very narrative you have constructed about who you are, all of it begins to soften, to liquefy, to lose its solid form. This can be profoundly frightening. The ego, the captain of your ship, feels itself losing control. It will fight back. It will manufacture crises. It will create doubt. It will try to convince you that you are going insane, that you are losing everything. And in a way, you are. You are losing everything that is false. But the ego does not know the difference between what is false and what is real. It only knows survival. This initial stage is a battle between the soul's deep, magnetic pull toward expansion and the ego's desperate, clawing grip on the known. The journey ahead is the story of that battle and its ultimate, shocking resolution. The man who hears the call and ignores it may continue his life, but a certain vibrancy will have left him. The colors of the world will seem a little duller, the music a little flatter. He will have chosen the comfort of the known over the terror and the splendor of the unknown. He will have chosen to sleep, because the dream, however mundane, is safer than the waking reality which demands everything from him. But you are not that man. You have chosen to listen. You have chosen to answer. And in doing so, you have set in motion a sequence of events that cannot be stopped. You have activated a latent potential within your own nervous system, a potential that has been waiting, patient and silent, for this very moment. The third eye is not merely a metaphor. It is a physiological and psychological reality, the seat of intuition and inner vision, and its stirrings are the first tremors of a coming earthquake that will reshape the entire landscape of your life. From this moment forward, nothing will be the same. The familiar will become strange, and the strange will become familiar. You are leaving the world of the agreed upon and stepping into the world of the actual. It is a lonely road at times, but it is the only road that leads home. And home, you will discover, is not a place you go to, but a place you come from, a place you have always been, and a place you are only now, after a long and weary journey, beginning to remember. Chapter 2. When your reality falls apart, there comes a moment on this path when the floor gives way. It is a moment not of gentle transition, but of catastrophic collapse. The initial glow of the awakening fades, and in its place comes a pervasive, unsettling sense of wrongness. The world you once navigated with confidence now feels alien and hostile. The relationships that once gave you comfort now feel like hollow performances. The job that once provided purpose now feels like a meaningless distraction. The music of life has fallen out of tune, and every note grates on your nerves. This, seeker, is the unraveling. It is the necessary and brutal deconstruction of your personal reality, and it is the first true test of your mettle. The man in the midst of the unraveling is a man watching his own life burn to the ground. He looks in the mirror, and the face staring back is familiar, but the person behind the eyes feels like a stranger. He listens to his own voice and hears the echoes of conditioned responses, of phrases that are not his own. His past, once a solid foundation of memories and experiences, now seems like a poorly written fiction, a story he was told to believe about himself. His future, which once stretched before him as a clear path of ambitions and goals, has now vanished into a thick, impenetrable fog. He is trapped in a perpetual, agonizing present, a present that feels utterly unreal. This is the dark night of the soul, not as a poetic metaphor, but as a lived, visceral reality. It is a state of profound grief for a self that is dying and a world that is disappearing. This process is often triggered by what can only be described as a download of hyper-awareness. The third eye, once dormant, is now flickering to life. And its first function is not to see angels and auras, but to see through the lies. You begin to see the hidden motivations in people's smiles. You perceive the unspoken anxieties in a crowded room, You become acutely aware of the subtle manipulations of the media, the political structures, and even the spiritual groups you once trusted. You see the immense, collective dream that humanity is trapped in, and you can no longer unsee it. This is not a gift. It is a curse. It isolates you. It makes casual conversation feel like a form of torture. How can you discuss the weather when you can feel the tidal wave of existential dread building beneath the surface of everyone you meet? How can you participate in the petty dramas of office politics when you are acutely aware of the infinite cosmos spinning in the void? Let me be blunt with you. You will feel insane. You will look at the people around you, going about their lives as if everything is normal, and you will wonder if you are the one who has lost his mind. You will scroll through social media, a festival of curated triviality, and feel a physical nausea. You will try to explain what you are going through to a loved one, and you will see the confusion and fear in their eyes. They will not understand. They will try to fix you. They will suggest therapy, medication, a vacation. They will tell you to snap out of it. This is the loneliness of the path. A loneliness so profound it can feel like a physical ache in the center of your chest. You are a castaway on the island of your own awakening, watching the ships of normalcy sail by on the horizon, forever out of reach. But here is the secret purpose of the unraveling. The reason you must endure it. The reality that is falling apart was never real to begin with. It was a construct, a consensus hallucination, a prison of thought forms and conditioned beliefs. The unraveling is not the destruction of your life. It is the demolition of your prison. The ego experiences it as a death, because the ego is the chief architect and inhabitant of that prison. It has convinced you that the walls are there for your protection, when in truth, they are there for its own preservation. The pain you feel is the pain of a lifetime of compression being released. It is the pain of your own spirit, finally, after years of confinement, stretching its cramped and atrophied muscles. Do not fight the unraveling. Do not try to patch the holes in your collapsing reality. Let it fall. Let it all fall. The chaos is not your enemy. It is the raw material from which your true self will be forged. You are not going insane. You are finally, blessedly, waking up. During this time, the most mundane activities can become Herculean tasks. The simple act of going to the grocery store can feel like a journey through an alien landscape. The brightly colored packages, the cheerful music, the hurried shoppers, it all feels like a bizarre and slightly sinister pantomime. You may find yourself forgetting simple words, losing your keys more often, feeling a profound disorientation in time and space. This is because the cognitive structures you use to navigate the world are being dismantled. Your brain is literally rewiring itself to perceive a broader, more complex reality. It is an upgrade of your entire operating system, and during the installation process, the old software crashes. It is messy, it is frustrating, and it is perfectly normal. This is also a time when old, unresolved trauma often surfaces. As the walls of your ego come down, the memories and emotions that were locked in the basement of your psyche come rushing out. You may experience sudden waves of grief, anger, or fear that seem to have no relation to your current circumstances. This is not a regression. It is a profound healing. Your psyche is finally safe enough, or perhaps desperate enough, to finally feel what it could not afford to feel at the time. The unraveling is the process of your soul doing its own archaeology, digging up the buried artifacts of your past so they can be held in the light of your present awareness, and finally, blessedly, released. The man who tries to resist this process, who tries to cling to his old identity and his old world, will only prolong his suffering. He will become stuck in a kind of spiritual purgatory, too awake to sleep, but too afraid to fully wake up. He will be the most miserable of men, for he has seen the promised land but refuses to enter it. choosing instead to stand at the border, yearning and terrified. But you are not that man. You have the courage to let go. You understand that the death of the caterpillar is the birth of the butterfly, and that the butterfly would never cling to the empty husk of its former self. So, let go. Surrender. Trust the process. The unraveling is not the end of your story. It is the violent, necessary, and glorious beginning. Chapter 3. Meeting the monsters in your mind. Once the structures of your old reality have crumbled, you are left standing in the ruins, and it is in these ruins that you will make a terrifying discovery. The light of your awakening has not only illuminated the heights of your potential, it has also cast a long, dark shadow. Every bit of light you cultivate within yourself creates a corresponding pocket of darkness, and that darkness is not empty. It is populated. It is the home of everything you have ever denied, repressed, and rejected within yourself. This is the descent into the Shadowlands, the journey into your own personal underworld, where you will meet the monsters you have spent a lifetime running from. The concept of the shadow, popularized by Carl Jung, is not some abstract psychological idea. It is a living, breathing, energetic reality within your own psyche. It is the repository for your rage, your jealousy, your pettiness, your greed, your shame, your violent impulses, your primal fears. It contains the parts of you that you deemed unacceptable, the aspects you had to hide in order to be loved, to be safe, to belong. You buried them deep, out of sight and out of mind. And you built a persona, a respectable, likable, spiritual mask to present to the world. The initial stages of awakening often empower this persona. You feel more loving, more compassionate, more connected. But as the process deepens, the light turns inward, and it begins to illuminate the locked doors in the basements of your soul. The third eye sees in all directions, and it does not look away from darkness. What emerges from the shadow can be horrifying. You, who prided yourself on your kindness, may be ambushed by waves of pure, unadulterated hatred for no apparent reason. You, who cultivated a persona of spiritual detachment, may find yourself gripped by a petty jealousy so intense it takes your breath away. You may have waking visions of violence, or be flooded with memories of childhood humiliations you thought were long forgotten. You will confront the face of your own inner tyrant, your inner victim, your inner addict, your inner manipulator. These are not intellectual concepts. They are energetic entities, thought forms that have taken up residence in the unused rooms of your consciousness. They have been feeding on your denial, and they have grown strong. They are the guardians of the threshold, and they will not let you pass into higher states of consciousness until you have faced them, acknowledged them, and reclaimed the power you have vested in them. I need you to understand this crucial point. These shadow aspects are not aberrations. They are not proof that you are a bad person or that your awakening has failed. They are the disowned parts of your own wholeness. The rage you feel is the power you gave away. The jealousy is the desire you repressed. The shame is the innocence you were made to feel was wrong. By refusing to acknowledge these aspects, you do not make them disappear. You make them autonomous. They operate in the background of your life, sabotaging your relationships, undermining your success, and leaking out in passive-aggressive comments and self-destructive behaviors. The spiritual path of light and love alone is a path of denial. It is an attempt to build a palace on a haunted foundation. Eventually, the ghosts will rise. So how do you navigate the Shadowlands? You do not fight the monsters. You do not try to slay them with affirmations or drown them in love and light. That is just another form of spiritual warfare, and it only strengthens them. The only way out is through. You must turn and face them. You must sit in the darkness with your jealousy and ask it what it needs. You must listen to your rage and hear the story of the injustices it has witnessed. You must invite your shame to tea and offer it a blanket of compassion. This is the alchemical process of integration. You are not becoming a jealous or rageful person. You are reclaiming the fragmented parts of your soul that got stuck in the frequencies of jealousy and rage. You are taking back your power. It is messy, it is ugly, and it is the bravest work you will ever do. But when you can look at the monster in the eye and say, "You are a part of me, and I welcome you home," it loses its power to haunt you. It transforms. The rage becomes unwavering boundaries. The jealousy becomes a catalyst for self-worth. The shame becomes profound humility. The shadow, when integrated, becomes the source of your authentic power. This work often happens in the liminal spaces, in the hypnagogic state between waking and sleep, in deep meditation, or in moments of sudden emotional trigger. A criticism from a coworker might unleash a torrent of inner criticism that you realize has been running your life for decades. A perceived rejection might bring up a well of childhood abandonment that you had neatly packed away. These are not breakdowns. They are breakthroughs. They are opportunities. Each time you consciously engage with a shadow aspect, you reclaim a piece of your soul. You become more whole, more real, more substantial. The persona you present to the world becomes less of a mask and more of an authentic expression of your complete self. The man who avoids his shadow is a man living in a house divided against itself. He may seem spiritual on the surface, but underneath, the repressed forces are pulling the strings. He will be prone to projection, seeing in others the very qualities he refuses to acknowledge in himself. He will be quick to judge, to condemn, to see evil out there because he is unwilling to confront it in here. His spirituality will be a fortress, not a fountain. But you are choosing a different path. You are choosing to descend into the underworld of your own psyche, not as a victim, but as a hero. You are gathering the lost parts of yourself. You are realizing that the monster you feared was, all along, a wounded child, a misunderstood protector, a god in exile. And in that realization, you are not becoming a darker person. You are becoming a more complete one. You are integrating the black into your white and discovering, to your astonishment, that the result is not gray, but a brilliant, dazzling, and unimaginable spectrum of color. The Shadowlands are not a place of punishment. They are a place of reclamation. And every step you take in that darkness is a step toward your own undeniable, unshakable light. Chapter 4. Navigating Sensory Overload and Energetic Chaos. As you begin the arduous work of integrating your shadow, another, more external challenge emerges. The third eye is not an isolated organ. It is the command center for your entire subtle energy body. When it opens, it is like throwing open the doors of a perception you never knew you possessed. Suddenly, you are not just processing the world through your 5 physical senses. You are bombarded with a cacophony of non-physical data. You become a living, breathing antenna, picking up the thoughts, emotions, and energies of everyone and everything around you. This is the psychic storm, a state of sensory and energetic overload that can leave you feeling raw, exposed, and utterly overwhelmed. Imagine walking into a crowded supermarket. Before your awakening, you would navigate the aisles, aware of the people, the lights, the sounds. Now, you walk in, and it feels like walking into a hurricane of unseen forces. You are hit by the anxious thoughts of the man in the produce section worrying about his bills. You are washed over by the depressive energy of the teenager in the cereal aisle. You feel the frantic, scattered vibration of the store itself, a building filled with stressed employees and hurried shoppers. It is no longer just a supermarket. It is a vortex of competing human dramas. Your own energy field, which was once a contained and private space, now feels porous and vulnerable. You absorb these energies like a sponge, and you may leave the store feeling exhausted, irritable, or inexplicably sad, carrying energies that are not your own. This hypersensitivity extends beyond people. You may become acutely aware of the consciousness of places. You might walk into an old building and feel the residue of past events, joy, tragedy, conflict, lingering in the atmosphere. You may find that certain natural locations fill you with peace, while others, even if they are visually beautiful, feel draining or hostile. You might start to perceive the energy of objects, understanding that a cherished family heirloom carries a specific vibration, or that a piece of mass-produced furniture feels dead and inert. Your relationship with technology may become strained. The dense, chaotic energy of cell phones, Wi-Fi routers, and power lines can feel like physical assaults on your newly awakened nervous system. The modern world, it seems, was not designed for a conscious human being. Let me speak directly to your experience. You may have started to dread social gatherings. A simple family dinner can feel like a psychic battlefield, with unspoken tensions and hidden agendas flying through the air like invisible arrows. You may find yourself needing to spend large amounts of time alone, not out of misanthropy, but out of sheer survival. Your body, your nervous system, is struggling to adapt to this new, constant influx of information. You may develop mysterious physical symptoms, headaches, nausea, insomnia, a buzzing sensation in your body that doctors cannot explain. This is the dark side of becoming empathic. It is not a cozy feeling of connection. It is often a torturous experience of being violated by the unseen world. You feel everything, and it is too much. The key to navigating the psychic storm is not to shut it down. That would be like trying to unsee a truth once it has been revealed. The goal is to learn to manage your energy with the precision of a master electrician. You must learn the art of grounding, connecting your energy field firmly to the stabilizing core of the earth. This can be done through walking barefoot on the earth, visualizing roots growing from your feet deep into the planet, or simply spending time in nature. You must master the practice of shielding consciously, creating a filter around your aura that allows in what is useful and screens out what is harmful. This can be visualized as a sphere of golden light, a mesh of mirrors reflecting energy back to its source, or simply an intention that you only absorb what is for your highest good. You must become a discerning connoisseur of energy, learning to differentiate between your own feelings and the feelings you are picking up from others. This requires a level of self-awareness and personal discipline that is unimaginable to the average person. It means learning to say no to people and situations that drain you. It means curating your environment with fierce intentionality. It means understanding that your energy is your most precious resource, and you must guard it like a dragon guards its gold. The psychic storm does not last forever. With practice, the cacophony becomes a symphony. The overwhelm becomes discernment. But while you are in the midst of the storm, remember this: you are not being punished. You are learning a new language, the language of energy itself. And fluency, though hard-won, grants you a power that those who sleep can scarcely dream of. This heightened perception also brings with it a new responsibility. You begin to understand that your own thoughts and emotions are not private affairs. They are broadcasts that affect the energy field around you. A moment of your anger can pollute a room. A moment of your genuine peace can heal it. You become aware of the power of your own consciousness to influence your reality in a direct and tangible way. This is the beginning of true mastery. The psychic storm forces you to take radical responsibility for your inner state. You can no longer afford the luxury of a negative thought pattern or a prolonged emotional tantrum, because you feel the immediate consequences not only on your own well-being, but on the environment around you. You are learning to become a conscious creator. And the first thing you must learn to create is a sanctuary within your own being. This is a profound and often exhausting initiation, but it is essential. The man who awakens his faculties of perception without learning to manage them is like a child who has been given the keys to a nuclear power plant. He will inevitably create chaos and destruction, both for himself and for others. But you are learning the controls. You are studying the manuals. You are becoming the conscious operator of your own immense power. The storm will pass. And when it does, you will be left with a clarity and a sensitivity that will allow you to navigate the world, not as a victim of unseen forces, but as a master of them. You will be able to feel the truth of a situation before a word is spoken. You will be able to sense the potential in a person before it has manifested. You will be able to commune with the intelligence of nature and read the signs and omens that the universe is constantly providing. The psychic storm is the tempest that forges the navigator, and you are being forged in fire and in lightning into something new, something capable, something truly extraordinary. Chapter 5. When your world ejects you. One of the most painful and disorienting aspects of the dark side of awakening is its impact on your relationships. The people in your life, your family, your friends, your romantic partner, have known you as the old you. They have built their expectations, their dynamics, and their own sense of security around the person you used to be. As you change, as you unravel, as you become more sensitive and more authentic, these relationships begin to function as a merciless mirror, reflecting back to you everything that is no longer in alignment with your soul's new trajectory. This mirror does not lie, and what it shows you can be a devastating sight. The man on the path soon discovers that his awakening is not a private affair. It sends out shock waves that impact everyone connected to him. The colleague you used to gossip with now feels uncomfortable around your silent, observant presence. The friend whose drama you used to enable now accuses you of being cold or judgmental because you refuse to participate in their cycles of negativity. The family member who relied on you to play a specific role, the peacemaker, the problem solver, the black sheep, becomes confused and resentful when you no longer follow the script. You are no longer feeding the energetic contracts that held these relationships together. You are, in effect, breaking a silent agreement. And the other parties will often react with confusion, anger, or withdrawal. It feels like your world is ejecting you. It feels like you are being punished for your growth. This is especially brutal in romantic partnerships. If your partner is not on a similar path of awakening, a chasm can open up between you that feels unbridgeable. The things you used to enjoy together may now feel shallow and meaningless. Your desire for deep, authentic connection may clash with their desire for comfort and normalcy. Your need for solitude, to process your internal shifts, may be interpreted as rejection. You may look at your partner and see, with painful clarity, the ways in which the relationship was built on codependency, not unconscious love. The third eye sees the energetic cords that bind you, cords of need, of fear, of obligation, and it cannot unsee them. To stay in a relationship that is not soul-aligned becomes a form of slow, psychic suicide. But to leave feels like a betrayal, an admission that your spiritual journey is destroying your life. I want to speak to your heart right now, because this is where the path becomes excruciating. You will be faced with impossible choices. You will have to choose between your own authenticity and the comfort of those you love. You will have to risk being seen as the villain in someone else's story in order to remain the hero of your own. The loneliness you felt during the unraveling will be compounded by a profound sense of grief and guilt. You will mourn the loss of connections that were once the cornerstone of your life. You will ask yourself, is this worth it? Is my spiritual growth worth the price of my marriage, my family, my friends? There are no easy answers. The path demands sacrifice, and the first thing it demands you sacrifice is your attachment to how others see you. But understand the higher purpose of this painful mirror. The relationships that cannot withstand your awakening were never meant to make the journey with you. They were lessons, containers for your growth. And once the lesson is learned, the container must break to release you. The people who fall away are making space for new connections, soul family, who will resonate with the frequency you are becoming. This is not a theoretical promise. It is a law of energy. Like attracts like. As you raise your vibration, you will magnetize people who are vibrating at a similar level. The process is one of purging and renewal. You are not being ejected from your world. You are being upgraded to a new one. Have the courage to look squarely into the mirror of your relationships. See what it is showing you. Thank the people who are leaving for the role they played in your story. Wish them well, and let them go. Your freedom, your authenticity, is worth any price. A relationship that requires you to abandon yourself is not love, it is bondage. And you, dear listener, were born to be free. This does not mean you must ruthlessly cut everyone out of your life. Awakening is also about bringing more consciousness into your relationships. It is about learning to communicate your new needs with clarity and compassion. It is about holding space for others to be where they are, without feeling the need to fix them or join them. It is about learning to love people without needing anything from them. This is the most advanced form of relationship, and it is only possible from a place of inner wholeness. Some relationships will transform and deepen through this process. Others will fall away. Your task is not to control the outcome, but to remain true to the truth that is awakening within you. The man who compromises his awakening for the sake of a relationship will eventually resent both the relationship and himself. He will have chosen a gilded cage over the wild, unpredictable, and magnificent sky. But you are choosing the sky. It is lonely up there at first. The air is thin, and the winds are strong, but the view is breathtaking. And eventually, you will find other eagles who have also learned to fly. The mirror of relationships is perhaps the most difficult test on the path. It asks you to choose between the love of others and the love of your own soul. And when you finally and courageously choose your own soul, you make a stunning discovery. You have not lost love at all. You have simply graduated to a love that is more real, more unconditional, and more powerful than you ever thought possible. You have discovered the love that you are. Chapter 6. Mystical Illness and Energetic Purges. The spiritual path is often portrayed as a transcendent journey, an ascent out of the body and into the realm of pure mind or spirit. This is a dangerous and incomplete half-truth. The awakening of the third eye and the elevation of consciousness is not an escape from the body. It is a full-scale invasion of the body by a higher voltage of life force. Your physical form, which has been accustomed to a certain level of energetic operation, must now undergo a drastic rewiring to accommodate this new power. This rewiring process is rarely graceful. It is often experienced as a series of mysterious, debilitating, and frightening physical symptoms. This is the stage where the body becomes the battleground. A man undergoing this process may find himself besieged by a host of ailments that defy conventional medical diagnosis. He may experience sudden bouts of extreme fatigue, where getting out of bed feels like a Herculean task. He may develop bizarre food sensitivities, finding that foods he has eaten his entire life now cause inflammation, brain fog, or digestive distress. He may be plagued by intense headaches, particularly at the brow point where the third eye resides, or a buzzing, vibrating sensation throughout his nervous system that makes it impossible to sleep. His sleep cycles may become completely disrupted, with periods of profound insomnia followed by a need for 12 or more hours of sleep. This is not a disease, though it can feel like one. This is what the mystics called a spiritual crisis or a kundalini awakening. And it is a purging of the physical vessel. The old, dense energies that have been stored in your cellular memory, the trauma, the repressed emotions, the toxic beliefs, must be flushed out of the system. This purge can take many forms. You may experience waves of intense heat or cold for no reason. You may have spontaneous emotional releases, bursting into tears or laughter without any obvious trigger. You might go through periods of detoxification where your body expels mucus, toxins, and impurities through the skin, the digestive tract, and the respiratory system. Old injuries or illnesses that you thought were healed may resurface briefly, as the body reprocesses and finally releases the energetic imprint of those events. It is as if your entire life history is being reviewed and cleared, cell by cell. Let me be very clear about this, because it is a point of great fear and confusion. You are not falling apart. Your body is not failing you. It is undergoing a radical and miraculous upgrade. The symptoms you are experiencing are the evidence of a profound healing, not a descent into sickness. The medical model, which is based on a mechanistic view of the body, has no framework for understanding this process. A doctor will likely tell you that you are stressed, that it is all in your head, or that you have a vague, untreatable condition like chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia. While their intention may be good, their paradigm is limited. You are experiencing a mystical illness, a descent of spirit so potent that it is reshaping your very flesh. So, what can you do? You must learn to listen to your body with a level of attention you have never before practiced. It will tell you what it needs. It may demand a complete change in diet, from heavy, processed foods to light, living, organic sustenance. It may cry out for pure water, for deep rest, for movement in nature. It may need specific supplements or herbs to support the nervous system through the transition. Most of all, it needs your compassion. Stop fighting the symptoms. Stop seeing them as enemies. Instead, dialogue with them. When a headache arises, place your hand on your forehead and ask, "What are you trying to show me? What energy am I holding here that needs to be released?" When fatigue overwhelms you, surrender to it. Understand that your body is doing profound internal work, and it requires all of your resources. The body is the temple of the spirit, and your temple is being renovated. The process is messy, noisy, and disruptive. But when the renovation is complete, you will inhabit a vessel that is no longer a prison of limitation, but a conduit of infinite power. You are not sick. You are being sanctified. This process can be understood through the lens of the chakra system. As the Kundalini energy, the dormant spiritual force, begins to rise from the base of the spine, it must pass through and purify each energy center. As it moves through the root chakra, you may face primal survival fears and issues related to your family and tribe. As it moves through the sacral chakra, you may confront repressed sexuality and creativity. As it moves through the solar plexus, you may purge old anger and issues of personal power. As it moves through the heart, you may experience both ecstatic love and heartbreaking grief as your capacity for compassion expands. As it moves through the throat, you may have to speak difficult truths or experience a sore throat as old. Unspoken words are cleared, and as it arrives at the third eye, the headaches and pressure are the final clearing of illusion before the crown chakra can open to the divine. This is a complete energetic overhaul. It is the embodiment of the spirit. The goal is not to leave the body behind, but to become so fully present in it that the body itself becomes a translucent vehicle for consciousness. The man who resists this process, who tries to suppress the symptoms with medication or deny their spiritual significance, will create a blockage. The energy will become stuck, and what could have been a transformative initiation will become a chronic physical or psychological condition. But you are learning to flow with the process. You are learning to trust the intelligence of your own body. You are discovering that your flesh is not separate from your spirit. It is spirit in its most dense and beautiful form. The pains and the purges are the labor pains of a new birth. You are giving birth to yourself. And though the labor is long and painful, the child that is being born is a being of light, a conscious immortal, a God in human form. The body as a battleground is a temporary state. The battles are the clearing of ancient debris. When the battles are won, the body becomes a temple, not a static building, but a living, breathing, pulsating cathedral of light and energy. You will feel more alive, more vital, more sensitive, and more powerful than you ever thought possible. You will have reclaimed your body as your own, and in doing so, you will have reclaimed your rightful place as a sovereign being in a universe of wonder. Chapter 7. When past, present, and future collide. As the third eye opens and your consciousness expands, your perception of time begins to undergo a radical and disorienting shift. The linear, sequential model of time, past, present, future, laid out in a neat, orderly line, starts to break down. You begin to perceive time for what it truly is. Not a line, but a field. All moments, what you call the past, the present, and the future, exist simultaneously in an eternal now. For the rational mind, this is an incomprehensible concept. For the awakened consciousness, it becomes a lived experience, and it is one of the most mind-bending aspects of the entire journey. Welcome to the labyrinth of time. A man caught in this labyrinth may find himself lost in episodes of vivid recall, where memories from his childhood, or even from what feel like other lifetimes, surge into his awareness with the force of a waking dream. These are not mere recollections, they are re-experiences. He can feel the emotions, smell the smells, and hear the sounds as if he is actually there. This is often triggered by the process of clearing cellular memory. As discussed in the previous chapter, the past is not dead. It is alive in your energy field, and it must be integrated. Conversely, he may have flashes of precognition, glimpses of future events that later manifest with uncanny accuracy. These are not guesses. They are perceptions of probabilities already existing in the field of potential. He may dream of a friend he hasn't spoken to in years, only to receive a call from them the next morning. He may get a feeling to take a different route to work, later discovering he avoided a major accident. Synchronicity becomes the norm, not the exception, because he is beginning to perceive the underlying connections that weave all events together. This collapse of linear time can be profoundly unsettling. It can create a sense of existential vertigo. If the past is not fixed, then who am I? If the future is already happening, then do I have free will? The very foundations of identity and agency begin to tremble. You may feel unmoored, as if you are floating in a vast ocean of possibility with no anchor. Your plans for the future may seem ridiculous, like a child's pretend game, because you are acutely aware that 1,000 different variables could change everything in an instant. Living in the present moment is no longer a spiritual cliché. It is a survival necessity. It is the only point of power you have. I want to guide you through this labyrinth, because it is easy to get lost here. The key is to understand that your consciousness is the navigator. While all times exist simultaneously, your point of awareness is the needle that threads the tapestry of your experience. You still have free will. Honor your choices in this eternal present moment. Determine which thread of the past you heal and which thread of the future you step into. When a painful memory surfaces, you are being given a gift, the chance to revisit that moment with the consciousness you have now, to bring understanding and compassion to a younger version of yourself, and to change the energetic charge of that event in your field. This is not just psychotherapy. It is time sorcery. You are healing your own timeline. When you have a premonition of a future event, you are not seeing a fixed, unchangeable destiny. You are being shown a probable outcome based on current energies. This is a call to action. It is an invitation to use your consciousness, your intentions, and your choices to steer toward a more desirable probability. Do not fear the labyrinth. It is the ultimate proof that you are breaking free from the prison of Newtonian physics. The linear time sense is a construct that keeps the soul trapped in a cycle of regret and anxiety. The eternal now is the playground of the Creator. As you learn to navigate this new relationship with time, you will find a profound peace. The burdens of the past dissolve because you understand that you can heal them now. The anxieties about the future vanish because you understand that you create it now. You are no longer a victim of time, a passive passenger on a one-way trip to the grave. You are a master of time, a conscious co-creator, dancing in the infinite field of the eternal present. The labyrinth is not a maze to trap you. It is a map to your own omnipotence. This new relationship with time also changes your experience of purpose. You begin to understand that your life is not a linear progression toward a single goal, but a multidimensional tapestry of experiences, each one valuable and necessary. A mistake from 20 years ago is not a failure. It is a thread in the pattern without which the current beauty of the tapestry would not exist. A chance encounter is revealed to be a perfectly orchestrated meeting of souls. You begin to see the grand design of your own life, and you understand that you are both the artist and the artwork. The man who clings to linear time is like a man who looks at a single thread of a tapestry and believes he understands the whole picture. He judges the dark threads as bad and the light threads as good, not understanding that both are essential to the depiction of the face of God. But you are beginning to see the whole tapestry. You are learning to appreciate the beauty of the dark threads and the necessity of the light. You are understanding that every moment, every event, every person who has ever crossed your path was a divine appointment, a necessary step in the evolution of your soul. The labyrinth of time is the university of the soul. It is where you go to learn that you are not a human being on a spiritual journey, but a spiritual being on a human journey, and that this journey is not linear, but eternal. And in that knowing, you are free. Chapter 8. Staring into the godless abyss. After the storms of the psyche, the purges of the body, and the disorientation of time, there often comes a period of profound, unsettling stillness. It is a silence so deep it becomes a presence. It is a void so vast it feels like annihilation. This is not the peaceful silence of a meditation retreat. This is the cosmic silence of deep space. It is the void at the center of all things, and every serious seeker, at some point on the path, must confront it. This is the stage where you stare, wide-eyed, into the godless abyss. The man who enters this stage has done everything right. He has faced his shadow. He has navigated the psychic storms. He has purified his body. He has surrendered his attachments. He has done the work. And now he expects the reward. He expects to feel the constant presence of God, the embrace of the universe, the bliss of enlightenment. Instead, he is met with nothing, a vast, impersonal, indifferent nothing. The feelings of connection, of love, of magic, all vanish. His prayers seem to hit the ceiling and fall back, dead. His meditations are empty. The symbols and synchronicities that once guided him dry up. He is alone, utterly, completely, and terrifyingly alone. It feels as if the universe has withdrawn its presence, as if God has turned his back. This is the dark night of the soul in its most pure and harrowing form. As described by St. John of the Cross, it is a crisis of meaning so absolute that it threatens to obliterate the very will to live. This is the final death of the seeker. The part of you that was on a spiritual journey, that was seeking God, enlightenment, or higher states, is itself an identity, an ego structure. It is the spiritual ego, and it must die. The abyss does not care about your spiritual aspirations. It does not care about your love and light. It is the raw, unmanifest potential that exists prior to any concept, any form, any deity. To know the true self, you must first be stripped of every idea you have about that self, including the most cherished spiritual ones. The void is the great eraser. It dissolves the last vestiges of the one who is seeking. It asks the most terrifying question of all. If there is no God to find, no bliss to achieve, no purpose to fulfill, then what are you? Who are you when there is no one left to be? Let me sit with you in this silence. I know how terrifying it is. I know the despair that whispers that you have been abandoned, that you have failed, that the entire spiritual journey was a cruel joke. This is the ultimate test of faith, but not faith in an external savior. It is faith in the emptiness itself. It is the willingness to let go of the last handhold, to fall backward into the unknown without any assurance that you will be caught. You must be willing to be annihilated. You must be willing to face the possibility that there is no meaning, no purpose, no God, and to be okay with that. This is not a philosophical exercise. It is a visceral surrender. And here is the great secret of the abyss. It is not godless. It is God itself, before it takes a name and a form. The silence is not the absence of sound. It is the source of all sound. The void is not empty. It is pregnant with all of creation. The peace you sought was a small, comfortable thing. The peace you find in the heart of the abyss is vast, impersonal, and absolute. It is the peace that passeth all understanding, because it does not depend on understanding. It simply is. When you stop seeking, when you stop trying to be spiritual, when you finally surrender to the nothingness, a miracle occurs. The seeker dies, and what remains is pure, unconditioned awareness. The I am that I am. You are not a person having a spiritual experience. You are spirit having a human experience. The abyss was not your enemy. It was your own face staring back at you before you were born. And in that recognition, you are finally, utterly free. This stage can last for what feels like an eternity. It is a profound and necessary purification. It burns away the last traces of spiritual materialism, the last hidden hopes for a special reward. It leaves you raw, naked, and real. In this state, you may feel a profound compassion for all of existence, not from a place of doing good, but from a place of shared being. You understand that everyone and everything is this same awareness, pretending to be separate, lost in a dream of its own making. Your heart breaks open not for yourself, but for the entire cosmos. The man who emerges from the void is a man who has died and been reborn. He has nothing to prove and nothing to lose. He does not need to call himself spiritual or awakened. Those words are meaningless to him. He simply is. He acts, but there is no actor. He loves, but there is no lover. He lives, but there is no one living. He has become a hollow bamboo, a flute through which the universe plays its own sublime music. The silence and the void is the final initiation. It is the death of the last and most subtle illusion, the illusion that there is someone who is awake. It is the end of the path. There is nowhere else to go, because you are already everywhere. There is nothing else to become, because you are already everything. The journey is over. You have arrived home, only to discover that you never left. Chapter 9. Forging a soul of unbreakable truth. From the ashes of the seeker and the silence of the void, a new consciousness is born. It is not constructed or achieved. It emerges, organically and inevitably, like a phoenix rising. This is the stage of alchemy. The base metal of your old personality, with its fears, desires, and illusions, has been subjected to the fires of ordeal, the solve of dissolution. Now, the process of coagula begins. The scattered, purified essences of your being begin to reassemble, but not as they were before. They are forged anew in the crucible of your experience, creating a self that is no longer a fragile collection of conditioned responses, but a soul of unbreakable truth. The man who emerges from the alchemical fire is a different species of human. He walks in the world, but he is not of it. His center of gravity has shifted from the personal to the transpersonal. He is no longer motivated by the need for approval, security, or control. Those old drivers have been burned away. He is motivated by authenticity, by service, and by a deep, abiding connection to the life force itself. His actions are not reactions. They are spontaneous, intuitive, and perfectly aligned with the moment. He has access to a wisdom that is not learned, but known. He embodies what the Greeks called Sophia, a practical, embodied wisdom that operates through him. He does not need to preach or proselytize. His mere presence becomes a calming, clarifying force in any environment. This newfound power is not a power over others, but a power for life. He becomes a clear vessel for creativity, for healing, for insight. Ideas, solutions, and artistic inspirations flow through him with an ease that feels effortless. He may find that he can affect the physical world with his intention, not through force, but through a gentle collaboration with the intelligence of the universe. Synchronicity becomes his native language. The world conspires to support him because he is in alignment with its fundamental nature. He trusts life completely, not because life is always kind, but because he knows, at the deepest level of his being, that every experience, every joy, every sorrow, every challenge is a necessary ingredient in the masterpiece of his soul. Let me describe the feeling of this state, so you can recognize it when it begins to dawn in you. It is a feeling of uncheckable groundedness. You are rooted in the earth, yet your consciousness touches the stars. You feel a profound compassion for all beings, because you see their struggles as reflections of the journey you yourself have undergone. But you are no longer enmeshed in their dramas. You can say no without guilt, and yes without reservation. Your yes and your no come from the same place of inner truth. You are no longer trying to be a good person. You simply are what you are, without apology. And that authenticity is your greatest gift to the world. The love you express is not a sentimental emotion. It is a fierce, clear, and unconditional acceptance of what is. This is the prize. This is the destination toward which every painful step of the dark night has been leading you. The third eye is now fully operational, not as a separate chakra, but as the integrated command center of a sovereign being. You see clearly, not just the unseen worlds, but the true nature of this world. You perceive the divine matrix in which all of reality is embedded. You understand that the darkness was not the opposite of the light. It was the womb of the light. You needed to journey through the dark side not because you were flawed, but because you were whole. And wholeness demands the embrace of all that is. You have forged a soul that cannot be broken, because it has already been broken open. And from that opening, the infinite now shines through. This alchemical self is not a static achievement. It is a dynamic, flowing, ever-evolving expression of life itself. You continue to learn, to grow, to experience. But now you do so from a place of play and curiosity, not from a place of lack and need. The world becomes your garden, your studio, your playground. You engage with life not because you have to, but because you want to, because it is the joyful expression of what you are. The man who has undergone this alchemy is a blessing to the world, not because he is perfect, but because he is real. His very existence is a testament to the possibility of transformation. He is a living bridge between the world of form and the formless, between the human and the divine. He is the embodied answer to the question that started this entire journey. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And the answer is not a word, but a life lived fully, freely, and fearlessly in the radiant, unbreakable truth of his own being. Chapter 10. Living as an awakened being in a sleeping world. The journey does not end with your personal transformation. In fact, it is only the beginning. The final stage of the awakening process is the integration of this newfound consciousness into the tapestry of everyday life. You have become a sovereign integral, a being who is fully individuated, yet fully connected to the whole. A being who operates from a place of uncompromising authenticity, yet expresses that authenticity through compassionate action in the world. You are awake. Now, you must learn how to live awake in a world that is largely asleep. This is the ultimate challenge and the ultimate gift. The sovereign integral does not retreat to a mountaintop. He understands that the mountaintop was a training ground, a place to gain perspective. The real work is in the marketplace. He returns to the world of form, to relationships, to work, to society. But he returns with a completely different operating system. He is in the world, but his internal reference point is the eternal, the absolute. He navigates the complexities of human life with the calm detachment of a master and the engaged compassion of a bodhisattva. He is not trying to save the world, for he knows the world is a dream, but he is committed to relieving the suffering within the dream, because he has known that suffering intimately and understands its illusory nature. How does one live as a sovereign integral? First, by embodying truth in every moment. This does not mean being brutally honest in a way that harms others. It means being so aligned with your own inner truth that your speech, your actions, and your very presence become a reflection of reality itself. You become a mirror for others, often without saying a word. Your calm presence can trigger immense discomfort in those who are still identified with their ego, because you reflect back to them everything they are refusing to see in themselves. You will be a trigger for the unconsciousness of the world. This is not a role you sought, but it is a consequence of your awakening. You must learn to wear this mantle with humility and without attachment. Second, you live by inspired action. You do not plan your life from the limited perspective of the personal mind. You listen, moment by moment, for the intuitive whisper of the life force, and you act on it without hesitation. Your life becomes a dance with the unknown. You take the job that feels right, even if it makes no logical sense. You end the relationship that is no longer aligned, even if it is comfortable. You speak the words that are given to you to speak, even if they are controversial. You trust that the universe is orchestrating a symphony through you, and your only job is to play your part flawlessly. This requires immense courage, but the courage is not yours. It is the courage of life itself, flowing through an unobstructed vessel. And finally, dear listener, you live with a heart that is broken open. The journey through the dark side has shattered your heart, not into pieces of sorrow, but into a portal of infinite capacity. You feel the pain of the world as your own, but you do not drown in it. You hold it in the vast space of your awareness, and you transmute it through the alchemy of your presence. You become a lighthouse, not by trying to shine, but simply by being a light that has been kindled in the deepest darkness. You do not need to convince anyone of anything. Your awakened state is your only teaching. In a world seduced by noise, your silence is revolutionary. In a world driven by fear, your fearlessness is a superpower. In a world asleep, your wakefulness is a constant, quiet invitation. You were chosen for this, not because you are special, but because you are ready. The world needs its awake ones now more than ever. It needs those who have walked through the fire and have returned, not with easy answers, but with uncheckable questions. It needs those who have stared into the abyss and have learned to love the darkness as their own face. You have undergone the most profound initiation a human being can experience. You have earned the right to be here, fully, completely, and authentically. So go now, and live, not as a seeker, but as a finder, not as a victim, but as a master, not as a human being trying to have a spiritual experience, but as the Spirit itself, courageously, joyfully, and miraculously having a human one. The journey is over. The adventure is just beginning. The sovereign integral understands that his primary work is not out there in the world, but in here, in the constant, moment-to-moment choice to remain awake. He knows that the pull of the old dream is strong, and that vigilance is the price of freedom. He practices his awareness like a musician practices his scales, so that when the music of life plays, he can improvise with grace and power. He is a warrior of the light, not fighting against darkness, but simply holding a lamp so that others may see their own way. He is a healer, not by doing, but by being. He is a teacher, not by speaking, but by embodying. He is the change he wishes to see in the world, not as a goal to be achieved, but as a reality to be lived. Breath by breath, heartbeat by heartbeat, in the glorious, messy, and breathtakingly beautiful human experience. You are that. You are the sovereign integral. Now, go forth and shine